It didn't work for over 2 years. Hollywood forgot me.
So arrogant. And in some ways hypocritical to me.
People open the gate.
While I am not emotional about the money, there is a price indebted to me for the blood I've gotten on my hands.
Katt Williams just blew the lid off a Hollywood secret, exposing why Matthew McConaughey got quietly blacklisted. And no, it wasn't just about flopping films or losing star power. It runs way deeper than that.
Because they telling the same people open the gate.
We're talking about turning down fat $14 million checks for cheesy rom-coms and daring to speak up about Hollywood's shadowy games. Right in the open, McConaughey didn't just fall out of favor. He broke the unspoken rules.
But I said no. And I think that was the one, that was probably what's seen as the most rebellious move in Hollywood by me, because it really sent the signal, he ain't bluffing.
Katt claims this wasn't some career dip. It was a straight up silent takedown, a blacklist, period. So how did one of the biggest names in the game end up quietly pushed aside like he never mattered? To get it, we gotta rewind the tape and look at where this man came from. Born in Uvalde, Texas in '69, Matthew didn't grow up in some glammed up red carpet fairy tale. He wasn't some polished child star molded for fame. Nah, he was just a regular Texas boy, raised in a wild, emotional household full of love and chaos. He's always kept it real about his upbringing. His parents weren't quiet. They were loud, fiery, and sometimes straight up intense. They got divorced twice and remarried 3 times. McConaughey said he never doubted they loved each other. But if an outsider saw how they fought, they might have called it something else. Abuse is the word people whisper. That's how raw it was. Growing up in that kind of firestorm, he learned early how to spot manipulation, how to hold his ground, and most importantly, how to stay locked in on who he really is. He didn't fold under pressure. He sharpened up. And the drama didn't stop at home. In his memoir, Green Lights, McConaughey dropped jaw-dropping confessions from his teen years, stuff that stunned even his day one fans. At just 15, Matthew McConaughey revealed he was blackmailed into losing his virginity. He didn't sugarcoat it or try to spin it. He said it straight up. Not the ideal way to lose my V card, but it's how I lost mine. Then at 18, something even darker happened. He said he was assaulted by a man while unconscious in the back of a van. These aren't the kinds of stories most public figures ever dare to speak about, but McConaughey didn't stay quiet. He didn't share these moments for pity. He wasn't looking for a shoulder to cry on. He told the truth because it shaped him. It built a man who refused to be controlled, played, or silenced. He didn't crumble or fall into bitterness. Instead, he got stronger, tougher, sharper. Instead of letting the pain eat him alive, McConaughey flipped the script. He chose to see life differently. I have a lot of proof that the world is conspiring to make me happy, he once said. That quote's been shared all over the place, usually without the deep meaning behind it. It's not just optimism, it's defiance. That's a man saying, you won't break me. He's the type who digs for purpose in the pain, who won't let dark moments steer the wheel. And that kind of mindset, Hollywood doesn't always know what to do with it. In a system built on silence, power plays, and people doing what they're told, a guy who won't play the game becomes a serious problem. Matthew's rebellious streak wasn't just about picking weird roles or ditching LA for Austin. It was in his blood. He's been standing his ground since day one. And that raw, unshakable attitude is exactly what put him face to face with the powerful players behind the scenes. Years later, when he finally hit Hollywood, he didn't show up with a famous last name or backdoor connections. He came in on his own terms. Matthew McConaughey didn't get handed fame. He clawed his way in, one hustle at a time. Before the world knew his name, he was grinding just to survive, juggling random jobs while chasing a dream that looked more like a gamble than a plan. Growing up tough in Texas gave him the grit. But Hollywood, that was a whole different animal. He tried everything to make ends meet. An agent once told him, "You've got great hands, kid." And McConaughey seriously considered becoming a hand model, if only he could stop biting his nails long enough to cash a check. He scrubbed dishes, worked golf courses, and even ended up at a blues joint called Catfish Station in Austin. He was the only white dude on staff, serving plates and pouring drinks in a spot soaked with soul, sweat, and pure Southern flavor. That job stuck with him, not just because it was rough work, but because it taught him how to hold his own in places where he didn't exactly fit in. He learned to adapt without ever losing who he was. Once acting gigs started trickling in, it wasn't glamorous. He took whatever he could get, just like every other hungry actor out there. But in 1993, everything flipped when Dazed and Confused dropped. His role as the slick-talking David Wooderson, iconic.
All right, all right, all right.
That famous all right line, totally unscripted. He made it up on the spot and it became legend. But even with that breakout moment, the industry didn't crown him overnight. Instead, they tried to shove him into a box. Studios labeled him the laid-back heartthrob, perfect for rom-coms. And for a while, McConaughey played the part. He starred in hits like The Wedding Planner, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, and Failure to Launch. They raked in cash, got laughs, and made him a household name. But there was a catch. Those roles put a ceiling on him. Hollywood saw the smile, the tan, the charm, and decided that's all he was good for. Just another pretty face with a southern drawl. For most actors, that level of fame would have been the dream. Money pouring in, the fans loving every move, and a beachfront house paid for by rom-com cash. As McConaughey once joked, those rom-coms were paying for the house on the beach where I was shirtless. Sounds perfect, right? But under all that charm and success, he was low-key restless. Yeah, he had the spotlight, but he didn't just want to be liked. He craved respect. That's where the real friction started. Once he began turning down multi-million-dollar offers for more romantic comedies, the suits in Hollywood started looking sideways. Like, why mess up a good thing? Why risk it all just to switch lanes? But see, McConaughey wasn't trying to live off someone else's script. He wanted control of his story. He was tired of being boxed in. For him, acting was more than just cashing checks and flashing smiles. He wanted to stretch, grow, show the world he was more than the charming guy with the abs and the accent and that hunger, that refusal to keep playing the same safe role. It didn't sit right with the Hollywood system. An industry built on routine, formulas, and predictability doesn't know what to do with a guy who wants to flip the whole thing upside down. McConaughey's need to evolve made him unpredictable, and that made him a problem. So, in the early 2000s, he made one of the boldest moves of his career. He said no, not just to one romantic comedy, not just to one director. He straight up shut the door on the entire genre that made him a superstar. He was done being the shirtless heartthrob. He wanted out of that box so bad, he took a 20-month break from Hollywood. No acting, no scripts, and he didn't fold, even when the money was crazy.
And I was the rom-com dude, man.
Yep.
That was my lane, and I liked that lane. That lane paid well, and it was working.
Yep.
But the lane I was so strong in that lane that anything outside of that lane, dramas and stuff that I wanted to do, we're like, no, McConaughey. Hollywood said, no, you should stay there.
One offer was worth $14.5 million, and he still turned it down. Now that's standing on principle. A move like that almost unheard of in Hollywood. Most actors would sell their soul for that kind of money, but McConaughey wasn't chasing fat checks. He was chasing evolution.
So since I couldn't do what I wanted to do, I stopped doing what I was doing, and I moved down to the ranch in Texas, and I went down there and made a pact with my wife and said, I'm not going back to work unless I get offered roles I want to do.
He didn't want to stay in the safe lane. He wanted to grow, transform, shock people with what he could really do. And at first, it actually worked. When he finally came back, he didn't return to cheesy love stories. He jumped into gritty, heavy roles like Mud and Killer Joe. These were raw, intense characters that let him flex on a whole new level. But then came the role that flipped the industry on its head, Dallas Buyers Club. McConaughey dropped almost 50 pounds to play a desperate AIDS patient, and that performance didn't just impress people, it wrecked them. It was real, painful, unforgettable, and it won him the ultimate Hollywood prize, the Oscar for Best Actor. With that gold statue in hand, McConaughey wasn't just a movie star anymore. He had officially stamped himself as a serious actor. Then came True Detective, an eerie, mind-bending HBO series that let him dive deep into the darkest corners of his soul. It proved he wasn't just here for the ride, he was driving it. He went from the guy who always got the girl to the guy who left audiences straight up speechless.
Those offers came, I was salivating, man, and I just bid on and went back to back to back and worked as much as I could and loved it and felt every bit of it.
But here's the twist. Not everyone in the industry was clapping for him. In fact, some behind closed doors weren't feeling it at all. See, Hollywood likes actors who follow the rules. Keep quiet, look good, do what you're told. But McConaughey, He broke that mold and never looked back. He didn't just take new roles. He rewrote the whole script of his career. And that kind of raw independence, it rattled the big dogs behind the curtain. His rise wasn't just bold, it was threatening. Because in Hollywood, shaking the system can come with quiet backlash. You'd think winning an Oscar would open every door, but in Tinseltown, it can also make powerful people nervous. Not shut completely, but for Matthew McConaughey, his biggest win might have marked the start of his biggest uphill battle. After grabbing that Oscar, something weird started happening. His career took a sharp left. Instead of riding a wave of prestige roles, the scripts landing on his desk started looking real suspicious. We're talking about projects that felt more like sabotage than success. Take 2016, for example. Brutal year for McConaughey. Free State of Jones flopped so hard it didn't even make back half of its budget. Then came The Sea of Trees, a film that didn't just get bad reviews, it got booed at Cannes. Straight up humiliation at one of the most elite film festivals in the world. These weren't just simple misses, they were potential career enders. And when stuff like that starts stacking up for an actor of McConaughey's level, you gotta ask, is this really just a string of bad luck, or is something else going on? Even The Guardian jumped in, hinting that maybe it was time for McConaughey to step away again, take a second break to save what was left of his momentum. That alone says a lot, but the real bombshell comes straight from McConaughey himself. In his own memoir, he admitted something most stars would never say out loud. Despite all the critical praise, his post-Oscar movies weren't pulling big numbers at the box office. Let that sink in. This is a guy who proved he could make Hollywood money with romantic comedies, then proved he had serious acting chops with Oscar-winning performances. So why did the pipeline of strong roles suddenly start to dry up? That's where Katt Williams drops the real tea, and it starts clicking into place. Katt, known for never biting his tongue and calling Hollywood out with razor-sharp truth, suggests this wasn't just a coincidence. He's hinting at something deeper, that McConaughey might have been deliberately iced out. And once you see the pattern, it's hard to unsee it. The drop in quality projects, the quiet shift from spotlight to sideline, it starts looking less like a slump and more like a setup. Katt Williams has been pulling the mask off Hollywood secrets for years. He's not just cracking jokes. He's been dropping warnings, calling out the system that hides behind red carpets and flashing lights. And when it comes to Matthew McConaughey, Katt says the signs are all there. This ain't just a case of a washed-up star. According to him, McConaughey got pushed out. See, Katt doesn't believe McConaughey just aged out or faded away. Nah, he thinks Matthew joined a long list of actors who got quietly shut down for refusing to play Hollywood's shady little game. And by the game, Katt's talking about the real power in Tinseltown, the stuff nobody says out loud. It's about silence, submission, and compliance. You follow the rules, keep your head down, and you get rewarded. You stay quiet when you're told. You smile on cue, and maybe, just maybe, you stay in the good graces of the gatekeepers. But if you step out of line, if you go off script, that's when they hit the switch. In one of his stand-up sets, Katt didn't hold back. He said there are powerful folks in Hollywood who decide it all, who gets roles, who gets protected, and who gets erased. Straight up, there are power brokers in Hollywood who decide who's in and who's out. And if you don't play ball, you could be scrubbed from the scene altogether.
Tell you that there's no...
And that's exactly what he believes happened to McConaughey. Just look at the timeline. McConaughey made millions doing romantic comedies. He was charming, bankable, and on every poster in America. But then he made a move nobody saw coming. He walked away from easy checks and predictable scripts to chase something real. He called it The Ensigns, a full-on career reboot. And for a while it worked. Dallas Buyers Club won him an Oscar. True Detective proved he could dig deep emotionally and mentally. He was flying high, but then silence. The offers changed, the roles dried up, and according to Katt, that wasn't a coincidence, it was a consequence. McConaughey didn't just switch gears, he pulled off a full-blown transformation. He proved to the world he wasn't just a laid-back ladies' man, he was a serious actor with depth, range, and grit. But right when it seemed like he'd finally earned his place at the top, things got strange. Instead of landing more top-tier roles and Oscar-caliber scripts, McConaughey started popping up in oddball comedies and random low-budget thrillers, films that barely even touched theaters, projects that didn't match his new level at all. It felt like that rocket-fueled momentum he built just slammed into a wall. For someone who had just won Hollywood's highest honor, that kind of career swerve made no sense, unless you believe what Katt Williams is saying, that none of this was random, that the industry was pulling back on purpose. According to Katt, this wasn't a slump, it was punishment. Williams says Hollywood has a code: stay quiet, play nice, don't rock the boat, and you're taken care of. But if you step out of line, if you start speaking up or peeling back the curtain, you become a problem. And McConaughey, with his bold energy, soulful mindset, and refusal to fit into the usual Hollywood mold, became that problem. What made it worse? He didn't just drop cryptic sound bites about being grateful. Nah, he hinted at some real mess behind the scenes. In interviews and speeches, he alluded to darker truths behind the glitter. He once said, some people don't want to see you make it outside the system because then they know they can't control you. That hit hard. And that kind of talk, that makes McConaughey dangerous, because Hollywood doesn't run on truth. It runs on illusion. It needs the public to believe that success is all about talent, that the system is fair, and that everything's as pretty as it looks on the surface. But when people like McConaughey or Katt himself start pulling the mask off, it shakes the whole foundation, and not everyone behind the curtain is okay with that. While mainstream media calls McConaughey's post-Oscar run a slump, Katt Williams sees something way more calculated. He sees retaliation, not because McConaughey messed up, but because he refused to play by the rules. This wasn't about failure, it was about non-compliance. To really understand what might have gone down with McConaughey, you gotta look at others who've crossed Hollywood's invisible line and paid the price. One major example, Brendan Fraser. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, Fraser was everywhere, especially with the Mummy movies turning him into a box office heavyweight. But then he vanished. And the reason behind that fall off, it wasn't bad acting or poor choices, it was something much darker. In a 2018 GQ interview, Fraser finally spoke up about what really happened. He said that in 2003, during a luncheon, he was sexually assaulted by Philip Burke, the former president of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. Yeah, that HFPA, the group behind the Golden Globes. Fraser said the incident left him devastated. I felt like someone had thrown invisible paint on me, he recalled. It made me feel reclusive, like something had been taken away from me. That moment didn't just break him personally, it shifted the entire course of his career. Even though Fraser didn't go public with the allegation back then, he did notify the HFPA. But instead of support, he was met with silence. I don't know if this curried disfavor with the HFPA, he said, but the silence was deafening. Burke later claimed Fraser's version of events was a total fabrication, though he reportedly sent Fraser an apology letter without admitting any fault, but the damage was already done. Brendan Fraser slowly disappeared from the spotlight, and his name stopped showing up on big-time casting lists. So when Katt Williams points out what's happening to McConaughey, it lines up with a disturbing pattern. Actors who speak out or go against the system often find themselves shut out, quietly. No public drama, just doors that used to open, staying closed. Brendan Fraser didn't stay silent, and when he finally spoke his truth, he made it clear. Something changed in his career after that moment. The phone does stop ringing, he said, and you start asking yourself why. There's many reasons, but was this one of them? I think it was. Not long after those jaw-dropping confessions in GQ, Fraser opened up again to E! News. They asked if telling his story was cathartic. His response? I just spoke my truth. That's it. He wasn't chasing closure or headlines. He just wanted to unload what he'd been carrying for years. A lot can happen, and it's important to unburden yourself with the things you just don't need anymore, Fraser explained. At X's All-Star party, he told E! That after finally speaking out, he could move forward. I feel good that I was inspired by others with courage, and I was able to speak what I needed to say. And it's a new time. But even after laying it all out, the system wasn't ready to let go. The HFPA launched a so-called private investigation, and then asked Fraser to sign a joint statement clearing Philip Burke of any wrongdoing, framing the whole thing as just a joke gone wrong, not an inappropriate advance. Fraser wasn't having it. I don't get the joke, he told GQ. He wanted the full investigation report, not just a watered-down summary. But the HFPA refused to release it, and that raised even more red flags for him. Instead of staying quiet, Fraser demanded more. He didn't just want an apology, he wanted change. He wanted Burke to step down. He wanted the whole unwritten system, the one that pressures victims to stay silent, to protect the powerful, to be dismantled. I want to end this chapter in my life and career and move on, Fraser said in a statement, just as I'm hopeful others will be able to in the years to come. The HFPA later condemned the incident as inappropriate, but still stood by their internal findings. And just like that, the pattern repeats. Someone speaks out, refuses to fall in line, and finds themselves staring down a system that protects itself above all else. Then there's Rose McGowan, another star who got systematically blacklisted after calling out the ugly truth about Harvey Weinstein. I was blacklisted after I was, she said, because I said something. The pattern always the same, speak out against the system, and the system claps back hard. And Monique, her story hits just as hard. After winning an Oscar for Precious, she was asked to promote the film globally with zero extra pay. When she said no, suddenly she was difficult, ungrateful, hard to work with, and just like that, her mainstream career evaporated. That wasn't a coincidence, it was a message.
You know, the phone was ringing and the scripts were coming. And when people say, Monique, where have you been? It's not that I haven't been on TV or been in the movies because I've been blackballed, as Mr. Daniels has said. The offers just didn't make sense, Don.
So what exactly did Matthew McConaughey do that could have put him in Hollywood's crosshairs? This isn't just about rejecting roles or switching genres. No, this cuts way deeper than career choices. What really made McConaughey stand out, and maybe made him a threat, was his mindset. See, he didn't just show up as the chill Texan with charm and a slow drawl. Over the years, he's morphed into something else entirely, a kind of spiritual voice in pop culture, a guy who talks real about values, reflection, and living life with purpose, not just profit. Go back to his Oscar speech, his university talks, his viral interviews, they all carry the same message: gratitude, authenticity, resilience, putting meaning over money, staying true to yourself even when the world tries to shape you into something else. To most people, that sounds uplifting, motivational even. But to the Hollywood machine, where everything runs on image, control, and a rigid pecking order, those kinds of messages hit different. They're quietly rebellious, because when someone tells the public to question the game, to stop chasing fame and stay grounded in who they are, that threatens the entire illusion. McConaughey once said, "We need to make sure our ambitions aren't just about us." He pushes people to focus on the journey, not just the destination, to chase character over clout. But that's the exact kind of thinking that doesn't sit well in an industry built on expectation, status, and staying in line. When you stop chasing the system starts chasing you. Hollywood rewards image, not identity. It loves transformation, but only if they're the ones pulling the strings. So when someone like McConaughey breaks away from that mold and tells people to wake up, be real, and chase purpose instead of applause, he's not just making noise, he's giving others permission to unplug from the system. Even the way he lives outside the spotlight sends a message. Take that wild 1999 moment. Yeah, that one. McConaughey got arrested in his own home for marijuana possession while reportedly playing the bongos naked. The media had a field day with it. Late night shows made it a punchline. But what really shocked people wasn't the incident, it was how he handled it. Most celebs would have gone into panic mode, issue a public apology, hide from cameras, hire a PR team to clean it all up. Not Matthew McConaughey. He didn't flinch. He stayed calm and basically said, "I was just minding my business in my own house. No backpedaling, no fake regrets, just straight up ownership." That refusal to cave under public pressure, that said everything. He wasn't going to be some polished puppet dancing for headlines. He wasn't living in fear of gossip columns or kissing up to the press just to stay in Hollywood's good graces. He was going to do them, even when it wasn't convenient, even when it brought heat. And that sent a loud message to the industry. This guy can't be molded. He's not going to bend just to stay on magazine covers or land a role in a summer blockbuster. And in Hollywood, a place where stars are built like products, carefully packaged, edited, and sold to the masses, someone who won't play along, someone who can't be controlled or fixed for branding, that's not just a problem, that's a threat. Over time, that whole McConaughey mindset, real talk, deep values, and living with purpose became more than just his vibe. It became his brand. But that same mindset, it also pushed him further away from Hollywood's inner circle. He didn't move to LA like everyone else. He stayed rooted in Texas. He didn't chase after club appearances or big endorsement deals. While other celebs were spitting rehearsed lines in interviews, McConaughey was out here speaking from the gut. No filters, no fluff, just realness. Anywhere else in the world, that kind of honesty might be celebrated. But in Hollywood, that kind of raw authenticity doesn't open doors. It slowly shuts them. Because McConaughey didn't just push back on the roles he was offered, he questioned the system that created them, the rules, the values, the fake smiles. And by doing that, he exposed something deeper. Hollywood's biggest fear, authenticity. Because once someone takes off the mask and shows the public that the glitz isn't real, it shakes the whole operation. And McConaughey, he's living proof that you can walk away from the game without losing your soul. But he's also proof that doing it comes with a price. And guess what? He paid it willingly. So whether you see him as a rebel, a philosopher, or just a guy with a southern drawl and a sharp mind, one thing's clear. Matthew McConaughey didn't just survive the system, he exposed it. If you like this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to know what you think about McConaughey's journey. And as always, we'll catch you in the next one.